Hi, Anna from Pre-Employment Transition Services here. I wanted to give you a little bit of helpful information as you are determining new students that might be appropriate for pre-ET services this year. Most of you already know about pre-ET, so I'll spare you the full rundown of our services, but there were just a few things that I wanted to point out. First and foremost, pre-ETS is an employment-focused service and not a general transition service. So in order to fulfill our federal guidelines, we need to center all of our activities around moving a student toward an employment situation. We serve students who are ages 14 to 21, and in order to get started with that student, we really only need two things. We need a signed release, and then we need a statement in the IEP stating that, say, Johnny Smith has been deemed appropriate to receive pre-employment transition services. Now, we're always looking for what skills we can equip a student with in order for them to independently participate in employment. And of course, that looks different for every student. And that is why it is so difficult sometimes for people to determine who would be a good pre-ETS candidate and who might not be. And that's what this video is about. So while we're looking for students who will have a chance at competitive integrated employment, we are also looking for those students who don't maybe look like they're headed in that direction yet. Best case scenario, we have a student who has motivation, they have family support, they have some form of communication, and maybe they even have the beginnings of some employment-related skills that would be good in the workplace. However, we have all had those students that surprise us. You can't know ahead of time what is inside of a student or what their future skills may be. And we don't want to deny a student employment-related services based on kind of our guesses ahead of time about what they may be able to do in a few years. It's also important for us to remember that many of us didn't look like we were going to be great employees when we were in high school, and look how we turned out. So here's what you really want to know. We're going to talk about a few deal breakers. And that would just be things that would mean a student is not yet ready for pre-ET services. Number one, attendance. Does this student seem to miss a lot of school, or does this student seem to lose a lot of their skills when they are gone from a few days from school? If that is the case, this student is probably not a good candidate for pre-ETs at this time. Number two, medical issues. Is this student intensely medically involved such that their health needs to be their focus right now as opposed to employment? If so, this student is also probably not a good candidate for pre-ETs at this time. Number three, behavior. Does this student have aggressive behaviors such that they would be likely to lose a job? If so, that student may not be a good candidate for pre-ETs at this time, but may be ready in the future. For now, that student needs to focus on classroom safety, and the appropriateness of pre-ET services can be reevaluated in the future. Finally, communication. Communication is not a deal breaker for us, but I wanted to highlight the importance of communication and being able to get a job, because it is nearly impossible to get a job if you don't have a form of independent, functional communication. That can look like a lot of different things, but one thing that we need to remember is that often communication has less to do with the student's innate ability and more to do with the communication methods and opportunities that we offer that student. And so we just want to underscore the importance of practicing communication, determining a good communication method, and practicing independent communication and independent classroom skills early on, long before that student gets to pre-ET services. Pre-ET specialists begin working with students at age 14, but we are so tremendously grateful for those students, teachers who get them early on, elementary age, and begin teaching communication methods, begin equipping them with those independent skills. If students do not have the skills to stay independently motivated and engaged in their classroom environment early, they often develop a thing called learned helplessness, which is where they see themselves as a person who just takes, as a person who gives and contributes to their setting, And if a person has learned helplessness, it is nearly impossible for them to obtain and keep a job. So this year we have developed a document, and on the first, that is intended to help us determine the appropriateness of services for an incoming pre-ET student, and also helping us decide where to start with services. And on the first page of that document, you will see a lot of the questions surrounding the qualities that I have just discussed in this video. In case you're just learning about pre-ETs, I also want to give you a few of the benefits of our services. One thing that we do is help students develop work skills, both through work skills practice in the class and in the school, and through community volunteer experience. Now, of course, right now this year that is on hold, but that is a huge component of our services in a typical school year. We also help students determine what jobs they might be interested in doing or might be good at by exposing them to a whole bunch of different career fields and getting some hands-on practice with those. We also connect students to post-secondary resources and services related to employment, such as voc rehab counselors and employment first specialists. And another thing we work on is self-advocacy. We help students be able to speak up for their own needs in the workplace so that they can be more independent when they do become an employee. Now, if that sounded like the most long-winded short video of your life, imagine how my students feel. I probably have some work readiness skills to work on myself. But I want to tell you how grateful we are for your partnership this year more than ever. Thanks for your time.